Welcome to episode 2 of the CALS Report, your insider view into college sports leadership. I'm Ryan Bradley, Vice President for Strategic Communications at the University of Alabama, and a member of the CALS community since its inception in 2011. In today's episode, we begin with The Lobby, a wrap-up of CALS 24 in Northwest Arkansas. Joey Bailey, Deputy AD at Mississippi State, Marshall Steward, Senior Associate AD and Associate Provost at Tennessee, and Chris Davis, COO of Athletics at Georgia Southern, will share their highlights and takeaways from CALS 24. And if you're a CALS veteran, you won't want to miss our final segment, an interview with CALS legend and go-to guy, Forrest Reece. On the other side, I'll be joined by CALS Director Will Reece. This is the CALS Report, where the conversation continues long after the event ends. Welcome into the CALS Report. I'm Ryan Bradley, pleased to be joined by my friend and CALS Director Will Reece. Will, we're just off the heels of CALS 2024 in Fayetteville, and dare I say, you raised the bar once again. I think it was the best CALS yet.
Well, I'll tell you what, people have asked me several times which one's my favorite, and I always make a joke about it's like your kids. You might have a favorite, but it's hard to say it publicly. But this one was very special, and it does feel like as much momentum as we've continued to gain over the life of 14 years, it's a different type of momentum. And, just right off the top, just a big, big thank you and shout out to Hunter Yurachek. His staff at Arkansas was just an incredible time. It's the first time we've been on a campus since 2019. Now we've had great hosts in different cities lately, but they've all had a different plan or done a different environment or whatever the deal it was. First time we've been on a football field. You and I were at the game the night before, and I know you as an Arkansas grad are pretty fired up, but it just really kicked off the weekend. I know for us, not for our friends from Tennessee who were in the house, but it really did kick off the weekend with just something incredible. And we were standing, on that field, saw Arkansas get a huge win the night before, and then, less than 24 hours later, we're back there for CALS in a beautiful, pristine place, and it was just awesome.
Yeah. To be clear, we didn't storm the field. We were actually already on the field and then trying to get out of the way before we got run over by the Arkansas faithful, who were taking full advantage of the opportunity to celebrate on Saturday night. The celebration continued all day and into the night on Sunday, as you mentioned. Just an amazing setting. I think everybody who was there Sunday night came away with one major takeaway from Hunter's conversation with CEO Doug McMillan. Just a very memorable and impactful conversation and a great way to kick off the event.
Yeah, I will say one of the things that we saw or I felt afterwards is that session. I think people took from it. It was different from what we've done. And I knew it was going to be great. I knew what a big time guy Doug was. I'd read a lot about his background, even though I'd never met him, and a self-made, started working on the truck and worked his way up. And his first job here as a manager was at a store in Tulsa, about a mile from where I'm sitting right now. And so it's a great story, but just, who he was. I thought the coolest thing was he showed up, up to Big Red's rooftop for the happy hour, and he was with us at dinner, and he was with us all night. And so approachable and accessible. And he was approached. And a lot of our people got to talk to him. And I thought he had a great time because he's a big sports fan. But the way that resonated with our people was just, I don't think it was like anything I'd ever seen Ryan at an opening dinner. So that was extremely special. You could tell that him and Hunter have a great relationship. And, that was just a great way to start off the night. And CALS always is a great way to start off a couple of days because it gets people in a place where they're around each other, getting a chance to talk and catch up. And that just really set the tone for what's going to come. A couple of highlights, for me of the event was looking at that. But then as I think about the panels, man, there was 0 weak links this year. We had fantastic moderators. And we have been lucky to have them throughout CALS, but I think the bar continues to be raised as, the room's gotten bigger, and as people have gone several times and this deal's developed into what it is, then I think, people really want to go and do a good job and show a great side, and our people really did. Great preparation, great communication. There's usually one weird thing that happens during a panel. Somebody says something that's like, that's not my favorite or whatever it might be, but like zero This year, of course, we just had just a power packed group. You looked at the agenda and, it was hard to step out and miss one of those, I know.
Yeah, I thought it was perhaps the strongest faculty cohort that we've ever had, and that really came through in the panel discussions. I thought our friend Clay Scroggins, author, speaker extraordinaire, added a ton of value with the opening keynote on Monday morning. Our friend John Robertson from Advent always brings great value, and that was this year's talk was no exception on Monday afternoon. And so all in all, the content was just outstanding. Lots and lots of folks with great feedback about the takeaways they had from the week. And you're going to hear a whole lot more about that from some of our friends who were attendees this year in our segment coming up called The Lobby. So make sure you stick around for that. And then hold on for a very special segment following the Lobby segment with CALS legend and Will's dad, Forrest Reece. So I had an opportunity to sit down with Forrest and learn more about his story and what the maturation of CALS has looked like through the years through the eyes of Forrest Reece. Just a really special conversation. Will, I want to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit about what it has meant to you personally to have your dad involved in CALS and be able to work alongside him on this through the years.
Yeah, well, I will say with the CALS Report episode 2, we're getting super niche with this segment, and there's going to be a group of people who will absolutely go bananas and love it, and love hearing from Forrest, and a bunch of people like, whoa, what are we doing here? But hang with us. We're going to have something for everybody as we go on with this process and with this project. But yeah, no, this is really special for us. I go back and I talk about the origin story a lot, and I've talked about it on different podcasts before. I talk about it at CALS each year, and because I think it really does inform what the event is and what it's become and the culture of it. And like my teenage daughters say, the vibes of it, which I think is really what sets us apart. And now it's almost dialed in to where, this year you feel like you get to that opening dinner and you can just almost see people taking a deep breath, starting to let their guard down, starting to open up and act in a way that's different. One thing I wanted to point out, I had 3 or 4 first-time attendees and sponsors mention to me the amazing thing is that how much ADs just hang around the room and they sit on other sessions and they're involved. And, we had 35 faculty ADs on stage this year. Of that 35, 29 had come up through CALS as a deputy AD, senior associate AD, whatever the role might be. So this is their home. And this is someplace they want to be. This is someplace, and not just those guys, but then you look at guys like Ross and Hunter who have been with us over 10 times. And several of the other people, Joe's been us several times, Castiglione and been a host. But, that's really a big part of what it is and what creates the culture and the vibes for what CALS is. Well, another piece of feedback we always get is people will reach out and send an email or shoot a text or a note. And people are always so great every year about reaching out and being appreciative of what we do, but they always want to appreciate my team and my family. And, the team outside of my family consists of you, Ryan, and, everybody else is, and where we started in 2011 was the genesis of the event was 30 some people at the Hyatt downtown here in Tulsa. And I always say the great thing about sports is it really does bring people together. It brings families and fathers and sons and fathers and daughters and mothers and sons and daughters. And it gives something in common for people to be passionate about, to love. And even if it's just something to attend, it gives you something to do always on the schedule. And that's where Forrest and I started was when I was young. He coached a lot of my teams and he wasn't a huge sports guy growing up. I have memories of being a 7-year-old basketball player at the YMCA over here and him out there with literally a textbook on coaching basketball, walk us through it. And he was always there, always available. When I went on to my coaching career, he was always at a game. Lots of time he kept the book for us. So he was always involved. And so it was natural in 2011 when we started this event that he would come over and just help, because that's not just what our relationship's been, but that's who he is he is a servant first, and he loves to and effortlessly seems to serve people, but especially his family. And so he was there, just like he'd been over the years, just to help. And then the next year, after the event, he'd made a little list of things that we could build on. And I was like, well, we'll see if there's a year number 2. And fortunately there was. And kind of as this thing went along, it really built into something for a full-time retirement position for Forrest. And so he's been with us, and not only with CALS, but he serves a big role with Next Level. He's basically our CFO, is what it's developed into, and handles all our finances. And then on top of that, he is the logistics man and hotel person for CALS. He takes all the stuff off of my plate that allows me to focus, on the people, as we're in preparation for that. And, he's done it well for a long time. And I always knew it was special, but at the beginning, you're just building and you're just grinding it out. And he was there like he'd always been. And then as the years pile up, the big moment for us, Ryan, you'll remember this is in 2015, is we're standing here in our office, getting ready to leave for Atlanta the next day. And he passes out cold, and he had a heart arrhythmia, and he ended up going through a process where he got a pacemaker, and he hasn't had a lot of issues with that at all since. But obviously that day was scary for us as, the ambulance came and took him away. And I would say there's a couple silver linings from it. We're already about 3 or 4 years at that point. But I remember at the opening dinner there at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, I was able to say, hey, if you've met Forrest at one of the first few CALS, here's his email. If you could just shoot him a quick email, say we miss you. And that night, that was huge for him. To get those emails, he was already had the biggest FOMO ever for missing out, and, was able to get that. And I think that really kind of galvanized the place for him at CALS. And the only other silver lining came of it is, we bought my sister Laura out of the bullpen, who's for the last decade has been a big part about, producing the event. So as we've gone from there, he's such a nice guy and always there to help, always there to have a conversation. So I think a part of CALS for a lot of people has has a big part of it has been, hey, I'm going to have this 5-10 minute conversation with Forrest every year. So as the years have rolled over, that's really grown. And it's been, as I look back over time, it's just an enormous blessing. Has been for him, has been for us, has been for the family. It gives us something. It gives us something to do. It gives us something to be a part of. Gives us something to work on together. But the really fun thing for me has been to see in his, I don't know if it's a second or third act at this point, but he has built this community, given him this thing to follow. He'll shoot me a random tweet about something that happened with Troy softball, or, something that happens, with Nebraska or whoever it is. It's some of our friends from CALS. It's something we can follow and talk about all year round. It's been a really cool thing to see him at this point in life. He just turned, 83, and, not as quick as he once was, but my guy was up at 5:45 a.m. On Monday morning at CALS trying to get some things straight with the room this year. So he's still after it. So it's meant the world to us.
Yeah, suffice to say, we wouldn't be able to do it without him. And also, he means a lot to a lot of people in the CALS community. So I think our listeners will really look forward to that conversation and hearing more about what this event and being a part of it has meant to him as well. So lots to look forward to on this podcast, but also lots to look forward to the future of CALS and programming we have coming up, more content on the horizon. Will, why don't you tell us what we have baking in the oven right now?
Yeah. As we're kind of starting to close the book on 24, we're still going to put out a CALS report e-magazine, which we have the last several years that people really like, with some wrap up and some original content in there. I'm real excited for what we've got in the works there. The last 3 summers we've done CALS One Day. I'm actually in the talks to possibly do 2 CALS One Days in different regions this summer. So we're not ready for an announcement today on that, but we'll be soon enough. And that's been a really cool addition to what we're doing here. And of course, we made a big announcement, at CALS with taking CALS 25 to Columbus, Ohio, with Ross Bjork as our host at Ohio State. It was really cool. Within 6 months of him getting that job, he was able to reach out and have a conversation about wanting to host. And he's been awesome. He's been with us, I believe 10 or 11 times, at this point. and has just been always available. And the thing I really appreciate about Ross is just, whether it's our deal or a lot of stuff in the industry, he really has been there consistently to help people in the next generation. And now that he's continued to ascend through his career and got to an enormous job like it is at Ohio State, it's really fun to be able to go there and be with him. And we had 5 people from Ohio State with us this year at CALS, so I was glad they were able to see, and would love their the energy and trying to one up everything. So, we're going to keep this moving forward. It's going to be a big year, number 15 with CALS. So, if you ever have any questions about that, be sure to reach out, and you'll have plenty of ways to reach out at the end of this podcast. But look forward to bringing that group together. Ryan, why don't you hit them with a little bit of what they can expect in the months to come, from the podcast?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, today's episode is a little bit more niche. You're going to hear from some of our friends who were attendees about their impressions from CALS 2024. We're going to talk to Forrest, but our intention is each and every month between now and CALS 2025 to bring you new content on the CALS Report podcast. We'll sit down with athletic directors, up-and-coming administrators, other folks who have influence in the industry. We know from reading the ticker every day, a lot is changing very, very quickly. And 6 months from now, who the heck knows what we'll be talking about. But the CALS Report will be there to be part of the conversation and allow our listeners to hear directly from those who are grappling with those decisions and helping to move the industry in the right direction and move it forward. And so lots and lots in store. You'll definitely want to make sure that you've subscribed and are prepared to catch each one of those podcasts between now and CALS 2025. But for now, I'm excited for us to dive into the first segment of this episode. Enjoy this conversation with Joey, Marshall, and Chris, which we call The Lobby.
Thank you for joining us in The Lobby as a part of CALS Report podcast. My name is Joey Bailey, and I'm the Deputy AD for Strategic Initiatives and Administration at Mississippi State University. I'm joined here today by Marshall Steward, who is the Senior Associate AD and Associate Provost at Tennessee, as well as Chris Davis, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Georgia Southern University. Fellas, just coming off of CALS, did you get back to campus, energized, ready to go?
Yeah, no choice. It was a fantastic experience. Obviously, we had double duty there, coming from Knoxville and in Fayetteville. Heartbreaker there on Saturday, but snap and clear, get ready for the next game. And it was exciting to roll into CALS with a clean slate. So excited, fired up, ready for this weekend.
Yeah, Joey, thanks for having us. Marshall, myself, and y'all got a chance to meet for the first time out in Arkansas. So that was super fun. And getting back here and back to Statesboro through Atlanta, back to Savannah, then driving to Statesboro. And it's always good to see people out there and at CALS. The CALS events are just so special. And then be able to get back and we were coming off a bye week. So we were already kind of feeling fresh off a bye week. And then we, as Will talked about on that Sunday night, you're either coming off a win, coming off a loss, or coming off a bye week. So we were coming off the bye week, and so we were super excited and getting ready for a big game week. We have all of our home teams this week at home, so it's going to be a busy week around Statesboro.
Awesome. Well, how are the email inboxes? You guys caught up yet?
Working on it.
Still a couple out there for me. Yeah, my coworkers know that. There's still a couple out there, but I think that's the importance of having a great team. Everybody knows the benefits of leadership going to CALS. I feel like that is something growing up in this business, that CALS is a premier place where your leadership comes back with lots of energy, ideas, and it's always encouraging to see those folks who maybe it's their first time get to experience it. So Marshall, I want to turn it to you. You're one of those folks who maybe had seen it. You experienced it, and we'd love to hear more about what you felt.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I honestly didn't know what to expect. I got a little taste, maybe a little bit there in June. We hosted and had the privilege to host the CALS One Day, which was my first peek behind the curtain as to what CALS was on a little bit of a smaller scale. And then having that experience, I was really excited to get the whole thing and to experience CALS in Fayetteville. In kind of prep for some of this, I watched the first episode and prior to going to CALS. And the first episode of this podcast, Randall was talking a little bit about comparing CALS to like the All-Star game. I thought that was pretty cool. It got me fired up. And then having experienced it as a first-time attendee, I 100% understand where he's coming from. I'd almost, though, through the lens of a first-time attendee, I'd compare it to like the Olympics, right? Because you see all these colors and logos. You don't necessarily know who everyone is, but you know they're the best at what they do across the country. And that was really cool. It was really good to dive into that. It far exceeded my expectations, and I'm already looking forward to doing it again.
That's awesome. Chris, you're a vet. Talk to us a little bit about how many you've been to and how you felt like this year was for you.
No, it's appreciate it. This is my fourth one, and got a chance also this past summer. We took a big group because of how great the CALS events have been to us. We took the Group 2 Tennessee to Knoxville and got a chance to do the one-day event, which was awesome. We brought like 15 people from Statesboro and really, really, really impactful there. And then naturally to do a fourth CALS this year was awesome. I think the best part about it is being around really good people, being around an environment where everyone's idea sharing. You get a chance to also just catch up with people that you already know, but haven't had a chance to spend some time with, because as much as it's great to FaceTime or have a phone call or do a Zoom or whatever, it doesn't get any better than being in person with people. And then naturally getting a chance to meet new people is an awesome deal. And to have all those people together, share things, learn things, and also just I think also everyone gets a chance to kind of fill their cup. That's probably one of the best parts too of CALS. You get a chance to be around people that are all going through similar things that you're going through, and get a chance to pressure test, but also make sure your cup is full, because at the end of the day, if we want to fill other people's cups, we got to make sure we're emotionally in a right good space, mentally, and in a good headspace. So that's one thing about CALS that's so special. So Marshall, we're glad that you got a chance. It's awesome that you got a chance to see your first one, because it's super cool.
Awesome.
Well, I was a CALS 17. That was my entry CALS at the University of Oklahoma. I was there at the time. And similar to the experience that folks at the University of Arkansas had this year in Fayetteville, there were some sessions for the folks on campus. And so that was really my introduction was, it was in town. Josie and Will had worked on a session for us in a larger group. And so that was really the first time I got to experience it. And I remember, CDC and Bubba Cunningham, Christo Conte and Bubba Cunningham being on a stage, and it was the most transparent, genuine conversation. And I thought, man, this is really special. I can't wait to be back here one day. And then, was at the last 7 or so years, have been at the last 6. So I think that those moments are really important for people in this business to see such leaders. And we saw it a little bit with Josie and Ren this week. You just get to see a different side, because although everyone is super genuine and super authentic in their work, it is a little bit different when it feels more like a fireside chat versus a press conference or other environments in which we typically see leaders in that space. And so it's been an awesome experience so far. All of them have been wonderful. We've had great speakers in the past. I believe Candace Lee interviewed Greg Sankey one year, and he said one of the most memorable quotes that I've used every day since, which is, college athletics, what behind us is behind us will never be. So college athletics as we know it is not the same, but what's in front of us is really great and can be really special if those in the room come together and execute. So that was a super memorable experience. But let's talk about the opening dinner speaker. That there's been a great lineup, like I mentioned, but that was pretty special. Chris, why don't you start us out with what stood out to you with Doug McMillon, Walmart CEO?
Yeah, and first of all, I think Sunday night, for Arkansas to have the facility looking the way it looked, big shout out to Hunter Yurchek and their team for getting that, because it was a crazy atmosphere there, and they had that stadium and all the grounds looking phenomenal. And then the whole event, Will kicking it off and being who he is, just so authentic and real, is something so awesome. And then to get Doug and have somebody like the CEO of Walmart step up and just really, I think, he poured in. But I'll tell you, there was two things that was huge takeaways. And that, the stories there are just awesome, right? But I think to break down complexity, simplicity, he talked about that. I thought that was really, really good. Just the variation of, hey, there's complex issues, there's simple things. How do you get through that? I thought that was really, really good. One of the things that I thought everyone in the room could take, I made a big note, was protect time to think. And if you think about everything that we go through as people in our departments, and for that matter, making sure that we impact people that are around us every day, giving them the space to think. I think it's not just, I think it's a two-way deal, like making sure that we prioritize time to think, but then also giving people the opportunities to make sure that they, and on our teams, and, telling our coaches too, that impact all of our student athletes, hey, make sure you have time to think, because you're impacting the core mission, which is our student athletes. And so those were two things that, really, and then, just the whole, the four core values he kept repping that you could tell, were really those three, which was respect for individual, act with integrity, strive for excellence and high expectations, and then service to the customer. I think, it's all about them. They can fire us. I think we as people in college athletics can think about, fans and donors, and how do we do it when we make change. Change is always around us, but how we do it. So I thought Doug was awesome, and he had a chance to really, throw some good ones in.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there. I think you're reading from my cheat sheet, Chris. You nailed a lot of the key takeaways. I was just struck by how real he was. He was very open and honest, and he was on a bit of a stage, but he was really transparent. And even one thing that struck me the most, and I think a later speaker even referenced it, but I think we all felt this way. You got a guy up here that's given his time. He has a company that he leads every day that I think this past year, their revenues were like $650 billion with a B, right? An insane amount of money. I can't even fathom leading an organization of that scale. And here he is sitting there thinking, when I feel bad for myself, I think about Hunter's job, he said. I think about Hunter and what he has to navigate. And that was just a very humbling moment for someone on that scale to really look at what's going on in college athletics right now and say, that's a really, really complex Rubik's Cube to solve. I'm glad I'm not that guy, and that was really good. And I appreciated that. His notion of simplicity on this side of complexity was really strong for me, the way he articulated that. He talked about the, evolving landscape always. We're always in the midst of change, but how you communicate with your people, right? He can't have a physical touch point with all of the employees in Walmart. And so he has to keep it simple. And when he said he's more of a bullet point leader than a paragraph leader, that's convicting for me, right? I got a lot of words all the time, whether it's written or verbal. And it's really convicting to me to think about how do you distill that down into a message that a couple of people can hear once or twice, and they can play telephone and make sure that it's not lost in translation. And so that was really convicting for me to hear a man that manages so much for so long and really talk about effective communication.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I know that he knew the group of leaders he was talking to, but him simply saying, tell people what isn't going to change, but everything else is up for debate. And I thought that was awesome to bring back to departmental staff members, coaches, because there is so much that we're going to have to adjust and be nimble. That was a really neat line. And so that was a big takeaway for me is everything's on the table. What will not change? What are our core values? But everything else we've got to rethink and we've got to reevaluate. So it was great. It was awesome. And you can tell the importance and the value that sport and our institutions have on people in the community, right? You mentioned he gave up his time to be there, but I think Hunter and the relationship he built is a testament to the opportunities we all have in front of us to build these great relationships with world leaders and community members. So I really appreciated that. All right, so everybody got some good rest. Nobody went out on Dixon Street, and we were up at the next day, hitting it hard with panels and outstanding, agenda. You guys talk to me a little bit about some of your favorite panels and what stood out to you. Chris, we'll start with you.
Okay, thanks. I'll tell you right out of the gate, and I sent. So we had two people for Allie Ware with our deputy for development, and then we had Josh Turner, who is our CFO. They joined, and that was their first CALS. And I said, hey, make sure you get to the opening deal. Clay Scroggins is awesome. I had a chance to see him in Atlanta and get a chance to see him again. I just think that, his energy right out of the gate and kind of making people really think about us, like yourself. I think the other piece to it was, Doug touched on it, and it was a theme constantly. It was people, people, people. And you got to have great people around you. You got to, we're impacting people. What's the whole core mission of college athletics? Student athletes, which are people. And so you kept hearing the word people. It's like, 5 years ago, you always heard culture. Now you hear alignment. Well, alignment's like, at the end of the day, really is the meat of making a culture, because if you don't have a good alignment, you really can't create a great culture. But to create great alignment, before you do that, it's like the people piece is so important. And so I think Clay kicking it off was awesome, and just talking about, hey, like, how can a healthier human across the board be a better leader, be an impactor, and, thinking and going through all those things right out of the gate was really awesome. I really like, and also his really big focus of, hey, great leaders know how to turn the noise down. Yeah. And I think that was a really good takeaway of saying, hey, there's always going to be a lot of things, but being able to know that who you are, where you are as a healthier you, how to be able to turn the noise down, realize, and also prioritize. I really thought Clay out of the gate, and then Marshall, I'll throw it to back if there's anything you want to touch on, and we can go into different all the different moments past that day. But I thought just to kick off Monday morning was awesome with Clay.
Yeah. No, Clay set the tone. I didn't know much about him. I had heard about him, obviously, as we're looking for speakers to get in front of our student athletes, and I live more on the internal spaces. Names come across, but there are a lot of folks out there. Until you have a touch point like that, it really kind of clicks. You're like, wow, this guy brings it, and he brings it in a real, authentic way. And it made a lot of sense. I caught him afterwards and was talking to him, and he's like, actually, I was just in Knoxville, and he told me about a personal touch point that he had with someone. And I would say kind of the presence that Clay has is very similar to the person that he referenced. It's a kind of a salt of the earth, very real, authentic gentleman. And so it made sense that those folks knew each other. So I thought he set the tone really well. There were so many good sessions, and it was really cool to see some of the moderators, people that are really good friends of mine, people I lean on heavily, the Terry Prentices, the Ashton Hendersons. To see those folks up there with so many heavy hitters was really cool. And then, one thing that stood out to me, and I can't exactly remember where it fell in the pecking order. I think it was a little bit later. But Ross at Ohio State, I thought he used some analogies that were unbelievable, right? He talked a little bit about the iconic picture of the school or the building burning while a football game was going on in the foreground. And I think that was Van Fleet. As I looked up a little bit, that was the photographer that captured that picture. But such a good analogy for where we are right now in college athletics and where our focus and priorities are. I thought he did a really good job of talking about the athletic director role and how in just a few short years it shifted to being part legislator and lobbyist. I hadn't heard it articulated that way. But as we kind of grasp and grapple with what college athletics is going to look like you have to have a strong business acumen. You need to be a little bit of a legislator and lobbyist for what you want and what you think would be the best version of college athletics moving forward. And so I really hadn't heard some of those concepts articulated the way that Ross did, and some of the decisions he's made, some of the ways he's communicated things that's caught national headlines. And folks have looked at it and said, whoa. And the way he articulated it, unpacked it, made a whole lot of sense to me. I think made a whole lot of sense to other people. And I think Will and I think CALS for being able to create a space where folks can be real about where we are and some of the information that's driving some of the decisions that we're making.
Yeah, and I think, too, on the sessions, first of all, Will coming up, we're working with the team to kind of create what those sessions look like. Then also on top of that, who's up there, who the moderator is. I mean, shoot, I always say, if it's a real college forum when Kevin Barefoot's moderating a panel, because he's smooth. Like, he's a great moderator, And I always give him, every time I see him, I'm like, there's one thing I know. You're going to be, if you're up there, you're going to have a new pair of kicks on and you're going to be moderating. But I thought too, like, there was a couple things came, that we talked a little bit about RevGen. I thought that was a lot of, that was really, really good. And, what does media exposure look like? How are we trying to, in a world of change, staying nimble? I thought, I love when people use the word scoreboard mentality. Like, I truly believe, if we're going to look at all of our student athletes that are competing every day and our coaches, they have a scoreboard over them all the time. And we in the college athletic administrator world, right? Like, if we keep embrace that scoreboard mentality, that creates that alignment piece, because everyone's realizing that it's that. I also, that headlines at uncertain times, if you think about that topic, my gosh, like, I think we're all, the one thing that you can feel is in that room, does anyone know exactly what's going to happen? The beauty is, in a way, everyone was authentic to say, no one knows exactly what's going to happen. But the one thing everyone was sharing was, like to your point, Joey, earlier, is that change is coming. It's definitely going to be there. That quote you shared, and it's coming. And one thing is, you got to continue to try to look around the turn. I thought Troy Dannon did a great job, talk about, looking around the turn and really throwing his thoughts out there on what could potentially happen with the House and NCAA thing. One of my favorite sessions too was when Hunter, Jeremiah, and Mac Rhodes was up there.
Man,
like, yeah, and it was those, and I actually shot a text to Jared. Jared couldn't make it, and I shot a text to Jared because, like, those moments of how they were being, well, first of all, the fact that they were sharing those real time was awesome. Yeah. I think, once again, that's what makes Cal special for those that have, I think that's the reinforcement. But then those guys up there sharing that and realizing, and also, one of my biggest takeaways from there is they agreed up there on that stage. Like, there was moments that they did not all on the same page. But they were showing that even though the word maybe wasn't the buzzword, X amount of years ago, they were living it, which was the alignment piece. Like, they were realizing that no matter what happened, whoever was sitting in that AD chair, when they walk out that door, we're locked and loaded. And so I thought there was just that was one of my a really, like, cool panel. I thought that really just impacted people because at the end of the day, I think it showed just, the relationship piece that comes with our jobs that is just so one of the coolest pieces, but also probably I know me personally, one of the favorite reasons why we get a chance to do what we do.
Awesome.
I thought it was brilliant. I know that we touched on Will being just the master at putting the right people on the stage with the right topics. And he's just so good at that. But I think what was different about this one wasn't necessarily the specific examples they gave, which I think were entertaining and interesting, certainly. But what it showed is a respect and the way in which this business and the relationships are so critical. And you won't be together forever, maybe. You won't always have an easy journey to where you end up. But it's this, hey, don't forget that you have teammates who helped you along the way, and you're always going to want to be connected to them in some way, shape, or form. You probably earn and gain a lot of respect through that, right? Through that adversity. But I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was a really, really cool panel that I don't know that in the years that I've ever seen or felt anything like that. It was great. Well done.
And the one line too, you just made me think of it, Joey, was when, I don't know which one it was, but they were saying how sometimes you go 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months without talking, but you pick right back up. And there's two things from there. Number one, I think that's real. And I think, and we all know that we get busy and we're in our own school and doing what we do for that logo and really caring about where we are. But when you pick up the phone or you need something, they're right there. But that's also too, you can tell that how much they love being right in front of each other on stage in person. And that's what also goes back to what makes Cal special is you get a chance to put people in the room and, rekindle some of those friendships in person that you don't, because everyone's moving at such a high fast speed with their jobs and their personal lives and stuff. So.
I think Mac Rhodes does win some sort of superlative for the shirt he was wearing. I'll let the listener decide what superlative they want to give him for that. But he was certainly a vibe up there on stage.
The whole fit was fantastic.
It was a vibe. Speaking of vibes, though, one thing we haven't mentioned yet, but it was very obvious, and you guys are making me think about it when you're talking about the dynamic that was up there on the stage during that interaction, was they have fun. Right? They genuinely enjoy being around one another, and we are go, 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 and we have hard jobs and we have to make really hard decisions that impact a lot of people. But I think it was Doug McMillan in that opening session, the Walmart CEO. He said, if we're going to work as hard as we work and on a Saturday, we might as well be having some fun. And I liked that because it's easy to forget that. It's easy to get lost in all the stuff that we do. But we get to be in college athletics. We don't have to do anything. We get to do it every day. And it's good to remind everyone of that, especially as you kind of move up the ladder.
Yeah. That's right. Let's talk about the breakout sessions. Those are always something I look forward to in CALS sessions, just because you get to meet folks that maybe you wouldn't have had an opportunity to meet before. Talk to me, what rooms were you guys in, and maybe what are some things that stood out to you in your breakout sessions?
Chris, I'll start there since you've taken the last couple. I'll give you a break to collect your thoughts. But so I was in the breakout session with Graham Neff at Clemson and Zach Selman at Mississippi State, which was phenomenal. I don't know how the sausage was made, how many dimensions of compatibility existed to put us in the rooms together. I know size and scope, we have similar work. And those are guys that I've admired from afar, and I have different touch points with each of them in different ways. Most recently being able to moderate a panel with our leader, Danny White at Tennessee, and Graham at the CALS One Day when we hosted in June. I thought it was a phenomenal session. It was a very open forum, ask me anything type of setting. But one thing that I really enjoyed, and we carved out some time to do it, is, and this isn't part of the script, but this is indicative of our world, right? We're getting ready for the session to start. Everybody's kind of milling around, grabbing coffee, grabbing water, whatever it may be. And all of our phones light up about the same time because there had been, Judge Wilkin had issued preliminary approval of the House settlement right when we go into the breakout sessions. And it didn't take long. And I actually asked the question. I was like, hey, your phones are vibrating like mine are. They may be calling. Where are you right now? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Because this is real, right? This doesn't mean everything, but it means more than nothing that we have a preliminary approval. And so where are you with it? And it was great to see them kind of say, okay, well, you're asking that question in front of a lot of people when I haven't had time to let it marinate. But they were very honest. And a lot of it led to what we had talked about previously. Tell people what you know. And that's consistent. We all deal with coaches. We all support our coaches. We all know that we're not too far away from signing dates and those types of things. And people are asking a whole lot of questions, and there's so many moving pieces. But we were able to cling to the same conversation that we've been having with our coaches. Tell them what we know. This is what we know right now. This is what the house settlement may mean, but it doesn't change anything yet. And this is where we live. And it was really great to kind of watch them form and collect those thoughts and even kind of practice on us before they go back to their campuses.
That's really good. No, yeah. Breakout. We had Ross Bjork at Ole Miss. Not Ole Miss, at Ohio State. He was at Ole Miss, and he was at A&M, and he was at Western Kentucky. And I got a chance. It was really cool. Ross actually and I worked. I worked with him at the University of Miami, and so long time ago. So it was really kind of cool to see his career do his thing, and then Justin Moore, who was at A&M, and then now the athletic director at Tulsa. And so it was, and then the group of people in the room. To your point, Marshall, it's like I don't know how how everyone gets to the room and how everyone's put in, but it's neat. Probably 75% of the room I knew, 25% of the room didn't, and it's another opportunity that is awesome in CALS because you're in a smaller setting, you're sitting in a room, you get a chance to meet new people. And you get a chance to have some really cool dialogue. We had Katie Young Stout and Iris from Turnkey, and she was very candid, which is awesome. And if anybody had search firm questions, I think that's a neat part of CALS too. You get a chance to look through that process through a different lens, ask questions, let other people maybe ask a question that you maybe always have but wasn't sure how to frame it. Let somebody else, if somebody did, frame that question. So you get a chance to hear that. And then also, I think it's unique, how on the breakout sessions, how they have, all right, search firms kind of leave the room and now you get a chance with those two sitting athletic directors in that room to kind of have a conversation about whatever it may be. And, like you talked about what's going on right there in real time. And then people were asking which happened in our room. And then, Ross actually had a comment about, he's like, right now I'm talking to our president, our chair of our, board, and, right in the middle of, but he, the great thing about going back to earlier comments is they also know how to prioritize their time. Like they were present in those moments, even though all this was going on. And you're talking about, just making sure to get in, to stay in the moment. So that was neat. And then also just getting a chance to ask questions and build a rapport with people in that room. Not just both Ross and Justin. And I think the other thing that was neat about Ross and Justin is, A, Justin worked for Ross. B, Ross has been an athletic director. I think he said, 15 years he's been an athletic director. And then you had a perspective with Justin who just transitioned into the chair. And so that gave a pretty cool component to the room as well. So I thought, hey, listen, big shout out to, how they bring these sessions together, the breakouts, the sessions and the breakouts. But there was good things happening in our breakout session room. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So let's step back for a second and, whether it was an interaction, an encounter, the opening dinner, when we walk out into Razorback Stadium, what is a key memory or a standout moment for you if we take a step out, and look holistically at the whole experience? Do you guys mind sharing something that stood out to you? Maybe Marshall, let's start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I might take a little bit of a different approach to it. Maybe two-part. One thing that was very apparent is I heard a lot of people say this is my 14th CALS, right? Out of 14, which is unbelievable. And as I'm looking at CALS from the outside, I see mid-October, which in anybody in the upper tier of an athletic department, it's kind of hard to reconcile being able to step away and go to a conference. For us, it was right after a football game, right? We don't make those types of sacrifices and those types of commitments unless we really, really love it and unless it really, really adds value to us personally. And to see so many people at such a high level saying, I'll never miss a CALS, right? I'm 14 out of 14. I'm going to fly in with the team and I'm going to stay after and be there for CALS, that speaks volumes. But in terms of a personal anecdote, a personal touch point, mine was very unique. I left CALS and I'm at the Fayetteville Regional Airport, and we're kind of just mixing and mingling. You see other, CALS folks that are taking the same flight. I have a connection in Atlanta. And so we're getting ready to leave, and a gentleman comes by and says hi to us, and is a gentleman that I wasn't familiar with, but he seemed nice, good presence, and a colleague of mine knew who he was and mentioned his name. And then we get on the plane, and it's a small plane, 2 seats, aisle, 2 seats on the other end, and we get seated next to each other, the guy who had just said hi. And he works for one of the search firms. It's Jeff Hathaway. And he's been an AD for a long time. And he has a wealth of experience. And I got to sit for the entire duration of the flight and just pick his brain about all things. Nothing about search firms, and everything about his lived experiences and what it was like to lead at different levels. And it was CALS that presented that opportunity for me. And so it was never over. I thought it was over. I said my goodbyes and I gave him my hugs, and I took off and jump in the Uber and get to the airport, and we're still doing it, and I think that was one of the most impactful conversations that I had in the entire time. And it happened to be on my way out. So a little bit of a different angle, but CALS is always going.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Yeah. That's really cool, Marshall. For me, I really, 2 things. One, the getting there and always seeing people that but you haven't seen in a while in person. That's one of my favorites, just because there's so many people you either have worked with before, at another school, or they were with you at your current school and now they've gone somewhere else and you want to catch up. That's one of the best, because it's all about the people piece. And then I enjoy locking in and taking, using the old notes feature on the Apple and create notes. And that's just kind of how I remember things. And so I do like to lock in on the sessions and try to take some fun notes. It's one of my favorite things. But I'll tell you, the one cool part I love is when I make a plate of food, like I'm trying to be so intentional, not just going and sit next to the person that I always know, and it's, don't get me wrong, we all want to, because I go back to my original thing, which is you want to hang out with the people and you haven't seen in a while. Yep. But I really like the time when we're breaking bread. I think it's really cool to meet new people through that process and get a chance, whether, I sat next to some folks I've never met at, when we were sitting in the stadium, and then at lunch on Monday. And so I really, that's one of my favorite things is getting a chance to meet some new people. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is, and also the last part is being around people that truly care about what they do, but also sharing not only their professional outlook on what's going on, but then also be really real with themselves about like some personal stuff about how that impacts them personally, how they integrate their life, because you can't really, there is no, hey, we're 8 to 5. That's not real, right? So how they integrate and just sharing it, I just think it makes it be. And then the last piece is having Will Reece be there and let show how much he cares, but then also, seeing Forrest, get his ring. I mean, what a cool moment that was. And so I think it's a neat deal. And the other part, and Marshall, you nailed it, but you're in and out. And even though it's right in the meat of, the fall, it makes it be, people, go in there on a Sunday, which is normally a little bit of family time, and get in there, pour into each other, and then get back out and get back to their institutions and start impacting for the week. So just, man, it's such a great event.
It is. And I just want to reiterate Will Reece and what he does for our industry by being a host and getting this going and being such, he's just such a catalyst for these types of things in the sense of building relationships, having people maybe break down, walls to be more vulnerable and to be more of yourself. He's just so good at it, and really grateful and thankful for all that he does. I have to give Laura Keep a shout out, his sister. She does so much and does a wonderful job with the internship program, which is big for our business. And it's a great network of young rising stars. We had 2 from Mississippi State, Kat Wallace and Carly Dark, and they were, really excited about that opportunity. And I know there were so many others, but want to commend Laura for all the work she does there. And then you touched on it, both of you touched on this at the beginning, but the Arkansas staff, had a home game, and the night that it was, and then to turn around and host your colleague or your counterparts and colleagues, I mean, that had to have been a really tough task, but you never saw that in their interactions. They were always so positive, and they executed at a high level. Hunter Yurachek, great host. But I also want to give a shout out to Kat Davenport. I know she did a ton of planning, and Kevin Trainer, who has been there a long time. I was a Razorback. I went to school there. So Kevin was there when I was there, and always such a great representative of the institution. And then Matt Trantham, you mentioned it, Chris, right out of the gate. That facility looked beautiful. And that's Matt Trantham for you right there, one of the best to do it. So want to commend those guys for hosting at such a high level. And then the only other, and I'm sure I've forgotten folks, and that's how this always goes, but Lisa Walker and what she's done with that Eventellect scholarship program is tremendous. So for me, I was able to attend one of my first CALS because of that scholarship program that Lisa does for young women in the business, or rising folks in the business who are interested in breaking through into administration. So Lisa Walker, Eventellect, that's just such a huge deal that she's taken on. And I think it's really important to have everyone have an opportunity and a seat at this table. So really grateful. And all this just represents the great people we've got in this business. And why the future, let's go back to Greg Sankey a couple years ago, I believe in Nashville, college athletics as we know it and knew it will not be the same, but what's ahead of us is really great and really special when the people that attend these events and the people in this business come together and keep the main thing, and that's serving our student athletes, our institutions at the highest level. So Chris, Marshall, thank you so much. This was fun.
It was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for taking.
We'll see you next year, Ohio State.
Yes, Columbus. See y'all.
See you.
It's time now for the big interview, and I'm excited to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Forrest Reece, an integral part of the CALS community since the very beginning, the one-man welcoming show on Sunday registration day, and really the guy behind the scenes that makes so much happen around CALS. Forrest, thanks for joining us. We're excited to be with you for this discussion today.
Well, glad to be with you, Ryan. As an adopted son of CALS, you're one of our favorites, and we're glad to have you part of our effort.
Oh, I feel very validated. Part of the Reece family. That's quite a high honor. And we've had a great opportunity through the years to spend some time together. And I want to talk about that as we move through this conversation. But first, for our listeners, I want to back up a little bit and allow us to learn a little bit more about Forrest. And I'm sure some interesting things that happened in your life long before CALS began. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, college, and some of the things that you did in your career before your son roped you into this deal.
Well, I'm a West Texas oil field brat. Grew up in the Permian Basin, now famous for fracking. Went to 7 different schools during my elementary, high school years. My dad was a farm boy who quit school in the 7th grade. A few years later, got into the oil business started out as a laborer and with a major oil company, and 40 years later retired as one of their stars. because he didn't have a high school or college degree, he was never able to go above a certain level. So he made a lot of new engineers out of petroleum engineering school look good. And so that always encouraged me, and he encouraged me to go to college. I went from a high school class of 18 to the University of Texas with 25,000 students. And that was a little culture shock, but I was a journalism major. Turned out I enjoyed working in journalism more than going to school. So I had a long school college experience, which ended in 1965 with 9 hours short of my degree, but I was offered a job as a political reporter by the Dallas Morning News, and at a striking $110 a week, and I felt like I died and got in heaven. So that I worked for the Dallas Morning News for a year, and then was asked by a up and coming politician to help run his campaign for Congress in the Panhandle of Texas. We won, and I went to Washington. Spent about 10 years there. Met my wife Liz on a trip to the beach with her office mates in the senator's office she was working for from Oklahoma. We met on July 3rd and we're married on October 3rd. So that was kind of our claim to fame, a whirlwind romance, 55 years now. Will and his older sister Laura, who's part of CALS, were the result of that marriage, and we've been blessed to work with both of them through the years.
Wow, what a fascinating story and a wild ride. Now let's talk about this career after the career that Will has brought you into. As you reflect now on 14 years of CALS, what stands out to you in terms of how it started and how it's evolved, and just what you've seen from the seat that you sat in, as this has really turned into something really special for the CALS community, and I'm sure for your family?
Well, it has, and it's really a one-man show. Will conceived the idea, has made all of the contacts with the help of Bubba Cunningham, of course, to get it started, and it's been just amazing to see how he came from a background as a high school / brief college basketball coach to being one of the top agents in the country for college coaches, and to conceive the idea of CALS and seen it grown over the years, just kind of amazing to me. I coached him in elementary and middle school soccer and basketball, and now here I am working for him.
He turned the tables on you.
Right.
Watching him grow up and supporting him from the sidelines, did you see that propensity to be a visionary and a self-starter, those attributes that have no doubt helped him develop this program early on in his life? Are you surprised by any of this success and some of the things that he's been able to pull off?
He was not a self-starter, except in sports. He was one of those kids that had to have a lot of encouragement from his parents in the schoolwork, but if it had something to do with sports, he was a self-starter. And so I attribute that to his ability as an agent and as a director of CALS. He gets something on his mind and he sees it to fruition.
There's no doubt. All right, let's talk about CALS 2024 in Fayetteville, and in particular that opening dinner. What a special night that was, Sunday night in Razorback Stadium. There was a really cool moment where Will presented you with a one-of-one CALS championship ring. Tell me what that meant to you. Was that a surprise? There it is. Oh, wow. In all its glory.
There it is.
Was that a surprise to you?
It's in the process it'll be sized hopefully, and I'll get to wear it every now and then. But this was
he told me you missed the size by a lot.
Yeah. This was actually the second little memento that Will had presented. His high school team was runner-up in the state tournament one year, the first and only time that's happened in the 40-year history of the school. And I was recipient of one of the engraved watches from that tournament, and this one was kind of icing on top of the cake. It's great to be recognized, even though you know you're recognized every day for your help, and kind of amazing that the year I retired from the mortgage business, which was my last paying job, he started Next Level with his partner Joey McCutcheon, and I just rented a small office to do some consulting from, and I decided pretty soon that I wasn't going to work that hard. And when he and Joey started Next Level, I was happy to turn my lease over to them for that small office, and we've been officing together for 17, going on 18 years now.
And still on speaking terms, I might add. So congratulations on that.
Well,
he specifically asked me, most days, I'm sure. He specifically asked me to ask you if, now that he's bestowed you this championship ring, if he's finally done enough to earn your love. So I'll let you respond to Will's question there.
Well, like most fathers, their children don't have to earn their love, and certainly he never had to earn my love. Just being Will, which, as I say, sometimes was a challenge to his mother and I. But it's just amazing to me what he's been able to do, and with the help of people like you and Grant Hill, his longtime friend on the graphic side of what he thinks up, and Grant turns it into something that is can be seen. It's been a wild ride, but for me a very good one. And CALS 24 was kind of the icing on the cake. To be presented this ring in front of the CEO of the largest corporation in the country, Walmart, was kind of an interesting piece of history there.
Yeah, that was a special night for a lot of reasons. You mentioned you share an office space with Will. You guys are working on CALS all year long. Folks only get to see you in person maybe 2 or 3 days out of the year, but tell our audience a little bit more about all the things that go into CALS and the things that you're working on from November until the following October to try to make sure that we have everything lined up and ready to go to put on a great event.
Well, it's been interesting to me. All of the planning of programs I've done have been crash plans, and to have the opportunity to work over several months, as you say, and work with my specialty is now working with hotels on planning for all the events, and it's been an eye opener for me to see how much planning this takes. And after he does all of his work on getting the panelists and telling all the people in the industry about applying to or being recommended for CALS. As you know, it's a recommendation only for invitation, and that way he has been able to get some of the up and comers in the industry to be exposed to the top leaders in the industry, and a number of them are now athletic directors themselves.
I've been fortunate to spend some time with you and your family, as you alluded to at the beginning of our conversation, and I found you to be not only a great group of folks, but also a very tight-knit family. And I think it's no accident that the CALS community that you and Will and your family have fostered functions in much the same way. as you have had the opportunity to meet and engage with and build relationships with so many of these athletic directors and administrators, folks who work in this industry through the years, what stands out to you? What's been the most rewarding part of being a part of this?
I think it's seeing announcements that a former CALS attendee is now being appointed as an athletic director. I try to keep up with what's going on in the industry and who's getting what jobs. And I every now and then my fading memory comes back, and I say, "Well, oh wow, he was at CALS," and that's exactly what CALS was intended for. Is to expose these up and coming individuals to the people who make the decisions, and to see them flourish. And so it's been a real honor.
That's awesome. Well, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you earned that championship ring. I've watched as your son has worked you to the bone in order to help pull these events off through the years. And Forrest, I know how much you mean to so many people in this industry and the folks who have come up in the industry and have engaged with CALS through the years. You've just built a special relationship with so many people, and it shines through that you are absolutely in this for the right reasons. So that answer does not surprise me in the least, that seeing other people grow and succeed is a big part of the culture of CALS, and you have had a very strong hand in that. So on behalf of the CALS community, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've given to these individuals and to this industry.
Well, thanks a lot, Ryan, and ditto to you. You've been a big part of this, and we've been very, very great, pleased with your taking part in CALS, and hope to see you for many years, as long as I can hang around.
Absolutely. Forrest, well, it's been an honor. We thank you for joining us on the CALS podcast. I didn't get a chance to tell you or ask you, is this your first podcast?
This is my first.
Well, I don't think it'll be your last. It was a home run to have you on the podcast today, and I look forward to our next visit. And thanks again for all you do for CALS and the CALS community.
Well, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of the CALS Report. In this episode, we recapped CALS 24 in Northwest Arkansas with Joey Bailey, Marshall Steward, and Chris Davis, who shared highlights and insights from the event. We also had a great conversation with CALS legend Forrest Reece, where we learned more about his journey and his deep connection to the CALS community. A big thank you to Joey, Marshall, Chris, and Forrest for joining us today, and of course, thank you for listening. We're excited to continue these conversations and watch this podcast grow alongside the incredible CALS community. And a special thank you to all the attendees, faculty, sponsors, and of course our host, Hunter Urachek, and his team at Arkansas for making CALS 2024 an impactful and memorable few days. Be sure to follow and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn and Instagram at The CALS Report and Twitter at AD Symposium for more updates. For more information on CALS or to get in touch, visit our website at www.adsymposium.us. For Will Reece, I'm Ryan Bradley, and this has been The CALS Report. Until next time, stay connected and keep leading the way in college athletics.